Have you ever asked yourself, what are the processes and best practices to building a strong brand that is likely to have positive impact on the ideal client? The dream of every rising star in business is to innovate a brand that is going to reach and possibly exceed the needs, wants, and expectations of their ideal client. Well, if you ever wonder what are those best practices to innovate strong brands that have strong audience appeal, I want to encourage you to stay settled in today because today we will be doing a deep dive into habits to build strong brands. With me today in studio, I have a very dynamic leader who will join me in the conversation. And that leader is no other than Clement Frank. Now, in the event that you're joining us for the first time and you don't know who is Clement Frank, well, Clement Frank, he is an economist by profession, but he's also a leader by certification. And he has a new book that is going to be on the block very soon. And the book will be helping you to understand so much more about branding, so much more about starting and scaling your business. Frank, I want to welcome you on today's program. How are you keeping?
I am fantastic. It's a good day.
Uh,
It will be
It's
better
a
going
sunny
on.
day.
Very sunny today.
All
Yeah.
right. All right, great to have you. Today, we're going to be looking at a pretty interesting topic. We're looking at habits and building strong brands.
Mm.
And to get the ball rolling, um, I just want to draw some quick distinction. They are branding falls into two main categories. You have personal branding and you have corporate branding. And I do believe that it's so important to distinguish the difference between the two. Even as I said, distinguish the difference between the two, I do believe that today, as you set the stage to build a strong brand, you must ask yourself how integrating personal branding into the corporate brand can help to strengthen not only your corporate brand, but how that brand can impact people. There's some other concepts in terms of branding because as we look at branding, also, there are different levels to branding. One may talk about a premium brand, and premium brand is the brand that reaches the high net worth individual. But of course, we know not everyone are consumers of premium brands. And there's where complementary brand comes in and supplementary brands comes in. So this is just a high level overview of what branding really represents. But I want to now do a little deep dive on habits that can help you build a strong brand. And for me, ground zero in terms of habits is really taking the time to study your ideal client. You want to study people, all right? Because the brand that you're building is not necessarily for you. In cases, yes, if you're part of a strong community, a strong culture, you can assess your needs, your lifestyle, your culture, and say that, hey, this is a common denominator. And based on the fact that this is common, I understand this environment, and I'm going to, innovate a brand based on my knowledge of self and knowledge of my community. That works at times. But sometimes you may want to innovate a brand that has absolutely nothing to do with you. All right. In this particular case, you really need to spend a lot of time understanding people. To understand people, it means that you're taking the time to understand people based on their lifestyle. It means that you're taking the time to understand people based on their cultures. It means that you're taking the time to understand people based on their social class. Now, it is this body of knowledge that helps you to be better at providing or designing your brand to better align with the needs, wants, and expectations of the ideal client. The more you understand about the ideal client, is the better able you are in innovating products or service to reach their expectation. So understanding the ideal client, understanding your target market, it's is ground zero. And sometimes this requires a lot of legwork because to understand the ideal client, yes, you may be able to pull a secondary data that's going to help you to understand these biodata marker of the ideal client. But when you're pulling secondary data, something that you need to consider is how relevant is that data? How relevant is that data? Because data could be outdated. And when you pull outdated data and you're making business decisions based on outdated data, guess what happens? You can waste a lot of time, you can waste a lot of money, and you can frustrate the process of building a brand that has appealed to that specific market. So, studying the ideal client means that you have to go about this in the right way. All right? In the right way. So, if you're pulling secondary data, you need to be certain that secondary data is up to date. You do not want to pull data that is outdated to misguide, mislead, misinform the decision making process. Now, the second approach that you can use when we talk about studying your ideal client, studying people, is you can do primary market research. Now, primary market research may be capital intensive, but one of the things that I always say, the cost to collect critical market intelligence justifies the end results. Because, of course, when you are going to the market with the intent of understanding the ideal client, with the intent of using data to help you to innovate products and services that aligns to the interests of the ideal client, there's no better way to get that kind of information than doing the primary research. Why? Because primary research, yes, is going to be capital intensive, but then it has so much of advantages. From the secondary research, you may not be able to develop a clientele list because it's just data that is helping you to understand historical factors. But when you go to the ground and you're now embark on primary market research, remember now, based on the scenarios that you create, you are interfacing with potential ideal clients. And the main reason or the opportunity that you're going to get here to interface with the potential ideal client, you can now create that database. So you might have product testing, service sampling, and as person comes in, you to test your products, to test your services, you are creating that database of the persons who are coming in. All right, so let's take, for example, you want to build a brand that is dealing with senior citizens. Senior citizens perhaps are complaining about the loss of energy. They might be complaining about, feeling fatigue. And you are the doctor, the pharmacist who are studying what are their concerns. And because you're studying, you're innovating products along those lines. So you give them sample of your products, and in giving them sample of your products, you're creating that database of who is using, and you're getting feedback from them in terms of how the product is helping them. Now, guess what happened there? Because of the process that you have set up to capture this data, once that product works the way it's supposed to work, because you have that database, you can leverage that database to cash flow. All right, to look at guaranteed cash flow, because you now know the specific target market, you know their needs, they're giving you feedback, and because they're now satisfied with the outcome, you can now leverage that to as a map, all right, to assess who is your client and how to cash flow your the brand, because you have them in your database. With secondary data, you don't have that. So primary data analysis gives you that competitive advantage. Yes, it may come at a cost, but the cost justify the end result. Because let us suppose that you are doing an extensive research, extensive study of your ideal client. Um, you might be interfacing with hundreds or thousands of persons, and that can translate into the concept that we say make business make sense. So I'm going to pause here for now, just to re-emphasize what we talked about. The first habit that we look at is the habit of studying people. All right, the first phase may be just interfacing with senior citizens and identifying what are their pain points. All right, so you start there. So because you're interfacing with the senior citizens, you have that database of their pain point. You use this data to innovate. And once the innovation is able to fix that problem, bam, you don't have to look for the ideal client, because you have studied them, you have interfaced with them, you have built a relationship. And this is one approach that you can use to build a strong brand. Frank, my friend, all to you, my friend.
Thank you, Gary. Um, we talk about branding and good habits about branding, but how can you develop those good brand habits? Now, a few days ago, I read um, Nikisha Matthews, who was a chief executive officer at Creative Business Branding,
Mhm.
and she wrote on how you can develop good brand habits. And I remember one of the things that stood out is that branding is a crucial aspect of any business, and it can
Mhm.
make or break a company's success. So, developing good habits in branding can help a business establish a strong identity. It can help them increase customer loyalty and also boost sales. But on the other hand, when you have bad habits, it can lead to things like confusion, mistrust, and of course, loss of revenue. The good branding habits include uh, um, consistent messaging and visuals, understanding the target audience. I think you alluded to that, and regularly
Mhm.
evaluating and adapting the brand strategy. Bad brand habits include copying your competitors, you're neglecting customer feedback, and failing to develop a professional brand identity. So businesses need to prioritize good brand habits, and they need to avoid the bad ones so that they can ensure that long-term success. But building a strong brand is not an overnight process. It's a journey, and that journey requires continuous effort. And there's a list that Nikisha had pointed out to keep in mind as you develop good branding habits. The first one is establishing that brand voice. One of the things that you will notice with our platform is that there's a voice, which is important as the visual that you're seeing. So your brand voice has to have a consistency, because a consistent tone and language across all your marketing channels can then help build a connection with your target audience. And this will make your brand more relatable. You need to be authentic in your branding efforts. We in Ghana always have a saying that when something isn't authentic, we call it counter. You don't want to be in a counter situation. Be authentic in your
Counterfeit.
branding, right? Counterfeit is the right word. But customers can sense when a brand is counter, or you're trying too hard to fit in or be something it's not. So what you need to do is stay true to your values and your messaging, so that you can build a trust and credibility with the audience. Keep up with the latest trends and technologies in branding, because you need to stay relevant. In this society we live, it's constantly evolving. It's content, and as a matter of fact, it's dynamic. So in a constantly evolving industry, you need to stay relevant, because it can help your business stay top of mind and ahead of the competition. You can take risks and try new things in your branding efforts, because innovation helps your brand stand out. It helps you to attract those new customers. You need to also go a step further by regularly monitoring and analyzing the brand's performance. And you use metrics like customer engagement. What are your sales like? What is the brand awareness? And this can help you identify areas that need improvement and make data-driven decisions to enhance your brand strategy. So by consistently practicing good habits and avoiding bad ones, the businesses can establish a strong brand identity that resonates with their target audience. And then it drives the long-term success. In addition to good branding habits, it is important to remember that branding is not a one-time effort. You see, as your business grows, as your business evolves or change, your brand has got to adapt to those changes in the industry and with your audience. And Nikisha had some other points that she considered. And the first one is maintain consistency. Maintain a consistent brand experience across all your touch points. That includes your website, your social media, how you're packaging, and what is your customer service. Because consistency builds what? Trust. And it helps the customers remember your brand. Use storytelling to create an emotional connection with your audience. I love to tell stories because people remember things like events that's brought out in the story. They remember the place they heard the story. They remember the time, what they were doing. So storytelling creates that emotional connection with the audience. You share the brand's origin story, the brand's values, and mission to help customers understand what the brand stands for. Focus on building relationships with your customers instead of just selling to them. Engage with them. You need to build a relationship. You remember the first time you fell in love? And that's what you have to do with your audience. The relationship has got to be built. You got to engage with the audience on the social media, send messages, respond to the feedback, and provide the value beyond the products or services. And then collaborate with influencers. We have a lot of influencers on social media. And so if you have that collaboration, the influencers speak to varying audience. And because they are speaking to you, they can sell your brand. So you need to collaborate with them and other brands also to expand your reach and you can tap into new audiences when you do that. Now, people don't like to be corrected. I don't, but you got to be humble. Never ignore negative feedback or reviews. Don't. You use those negative feedbacks as an opportunity to learn and improve your brand experience. You got to remember that branding is an ongoing process that requires consistent effort, and you have to pay attention to details. If you follow good branding habits, and if you continually evaluate and adapt your strategies, your business can build a strong brand identity that resonates with your target audiences, and then they will drive your success. We here on this program are always there to help you, whatever your need is. So you can visit us. You see our contact information will be on the screen. Talk to us. We'll help you through branding. Over to you, Gary.
All right, that definitely was very insightful, and I agree. The ability to integrate storytelling into your messaging is so important. Is so important. But just before I expand a little bit more on why you should study the ideal client, why you should study people, I want to just point you to one of our platforms that you can tap into to learn more about what we are talking about. So, the website on screen, I want you to take some time and just look at this website. When you go to the website, one of the first programs you will see is One Degree to Success. Now, why we have developed this program and all the other programs that we introduced to the wider business community is because we have researched the market, and we understand specific needs of the market. And based on understanding those specific needs, we have innovated these content based on market research that can help you, the rising star in business, to make better, smarter business decisions and also accelerate your business growth. So, on this platform in itself, One Degree to Success, there's a lot of content that you will take away. Now, branding in of itself, we look at branding as the outcome that you want. That's the success that you want. You want a strong brand. But what we do, we help you to understand how to see branding in terms of art and in terms of science. And what is art? Art, we would normally refer to art as the strategy, as the tools, as the process, as the systems that you're going to deploy as a vehicle to help you to achieve the end results. The end results that you want is a strong brand. So you have to be able to understand what are the best tools that you can use to achieve an end results. Like, for example, if you're going to cut a tree down, it makes sense, yes, if you're using an axe to ensure that the axe is sharp. But worse yet, you may be trying to cut that tree down and you're using a crescent. A crescent, can enable you to cut down that tree. You're using the wrong tools. So on these platforms, you get to be exposed to the right tools that you should be using as the vehicle to give you the scientific outcome. We also talk a lot about scientific outcome, the science of branding. And the science of branding has everything to do with you knowing exactly what steps to take to attain what we call the high reward, the results that you want. Measurable outcome. You want to be able to measure the outcome. So, for example, uh, so you're building the corporate brand. What are some of the measurable outcome that you want to accomplish? When the customer sees the building, do you want the building to have positive appeal on the ideal client? What message do you want to communicate to them in your building design? Whether you own the building or you're renting that building, what message do you want to send to them? Uh, so there's a lot that goes into building a brand. All right. What message are you sending once the ideal client gets into the building? How is the ambience and the aesthetic setup to create the feel that you want to communicate to the ideal client? Are you thinking of all of this? Because all of this plays into your how your brand influence and impact the ideal client, how you're leveraging branding strategies to break into that know, like, and trust, into building out, how customers relate to you. So all of these things are things that you need to think through. And I have a number of books that is already out there. If you go to the website and you navigate the website, if you go to products, and from products, if you now look at ebooks, you will see some of the books that we have to really help you to understand some of what we are talking about. So a lot of what we are talking about is you can go to the website, which is bestsellerportal.org, and you can get some of the books that those information are in. So it's important to understand best practices that you can use to build a strong brand. And One Degree to Success is one of those programs that will help you to understand how to just shift by 1 degree to come closer and closer to attaining your target audience appeal. Now, what I want to do, I want to just go a little bit more deeper into studying people and studying your ideal client. Why is it so important to study your ideal client? You study your ideal client for many, many reasons. One, you want to ensure that you understand their needs. So when you're innovating products and services, you know that you're reaching those specific needs. And you know that you're in a position of strength to add value above and beyond expectations. You have the data that is helping you to make informed decision. You don't get to innovation and you don't understand the ideal client. Some people do that. And that's one of the reasons why many businesses fail. Can you imagine that you're going into a particular community and you're assuming that everyone likes chocolate and ice cream cone? But this particular community you went into, they might be vegetarian. They might be persons that just don't use the product that you're innovating. But you don't know that because you put the cart in front of the horse. So the more time you spend to understand people, you're better able to make informed and educated business decisions. And all strong brands are built on data. In the developed world, the top 500 companies, they invest hundreds of thousands of dollars and billions of dollars into data, billions of dollars over the life cycle of the operation, into collecting data, all right, into analyzing data, into leveraging data that is helping them to make better business decisions. Some of the other things that you can benefit from when you study people, you're able to look at people, study people based on other factors. For example, and I don't want to sound too academic here, when we are studying people, we look at things like demographic data. And demographic data represents a number of key performers. You're going to look at people income. And why are you going to look at income? Because you want to know if people can afford the product. You're going to look at people marital status. Um, why are you going to look at people marital status? Because all of these things help the keen eye, the trained mind to understand people. A single person may be able to do this much, but when you combine that single person with a married person, they may be able to do so much more and go so much further. And let me give you an example how I may do an analysis. And even with banks, they do these type of analysis. For example, you want to buy a house, but when they look at your single source of income, they recognize that your single source of income is not adequate to clear you to buy your first home. So they may say, okay, is there someone in your life that you can add to your account? It might be your spouse, it might be your mom, your dad, that they're going to add to your account. And because you have that, not a source of income, particularly so your spouse, because you're living now in one home, is another source of income coming in. They now use that data to give you a favorable consideration. So these data, these analysis is being made all the time. You as a rising star in business, building a brand, you're extracting some of these information because you want to make business make sense. All right. Some additional benefits in studying your clients, studying people, is because you want to know the market, your market size. You study people because you want to know, hey, this is the number of people that are these are the pain points of the number of persons. And let's take, for example, let's put this into some numbers. Now, let us use the same scenario. You're targeting senior citizens, but you recognize that 100,000 senior citizens, they have specific needs. You went to the secondary data, you look at the secondary data, you see that, hey, we got 1 million senior citizens, but you see 100,000, they have specific needs that are not met. So when you study your ideal client, you get this type of information. But this 100,000 senior citizens whose needs are not met, guess what? They have disposable income and they can at least spend 100 US dollars per month on products that are not available. So when you do the analysis, when you study the ideal client, you can now equate 100,000 senior citizens that can spend 100 US dollars. You can equate that into $1 million potential income to the organization. And when you calculate that now by the annual income, 100,000 per month equate by 12, you get $1.2 million. So studying the ideal client really helps you to understand so much, not only their specific needs, but it helps you to understand if they have disposable income. It helps you to understand the market size. And because you have this type of information, you can make smarter business decisions. Building a strong brand should not be looked at in you building it in isolation of all the other moving parts to make that brand successful. You need to look at the entire ecosystem associated with the brand. We can push this one step forward in terms of financial benefits in knowing and studying the ideal client. So you're local, you see a market of 100,000. So you want to now move from local into national, into regional, and possibly international. And let's suppose that when you go national, you see that you have 1 million persons, 1 million senior citizens that have the same needs. So you widen your scope of research, you widen your scope of study of the ideal client, and you now recognize that you have 1 million potential consumers. What does that translate to in terms of dollar? What does it translate into? So this translates into multiple billions of dollars. All right, at least 1.2 billion dollars you can actually be generating here. All right, so studying the ideal client, knowing the ideal client means also that you understand all of the other variables. There's a concept that we talk about that we refer to as stress test. So you know the ideal client, you know their needs, you want to stress test this because it's by stress testing you now understand if doing business with these ideal clients really makes a whole lot of sense. All right. Doing business, one of the things you want to be certain that you're doing is ensuring that business makes sense. Now let's do the maths based on the figures. So you now have 1 million consumers that can invest $100 with you to perhaps get an energy booster. All right. What that translates to, that now translates into $100 million per month. $100 million per month. When you multiply that by 12, what do you get? $1.2 billion annually. So as you get to identify the ideal client, as you move towards product and service innovation, you're doing some of these analysis to ensure that building a strong brand really makes sense, because so a lot of capital also has to be invested into building a brand, developing a brand. And these are essential habits that you need to form around building your brand. So, Frank, I'd wanted to go into um, study your market, but I'm going to pause there for now. I'm going to hand to you. All to you, my friend.
All right, thanks a lot, Gary. Um, we talking building strong brands and strategies for building strong brands. And you can build brands from either taking photos of products or services to optimizing the business website. And I've noticed a lot of small businesses strengthen their brand and boost traffic through the internet. The thing about branding is if you create a lasting impact or on a potential customer, it holds um, a lot of significance, immense significance for the reputation and for the identity of your company. We know we're in a market that is saturated with goods and services. But in that same saturated market, the consumers have more options of who they can choose to patronize. And research shows that for 82% of customers, the decision comes down to finding a brand that holds the same values and reflects them in its branding. So they use strategy like the amp up, the SEO. It's hard to grow your brand if clients don't know you exist, or they can't find you easily online. And that's why it's crucial to improve your rankings among search engines like Google. Because the goal is for your site and for any content that you publish to be among the top results that appear when people conduct a key search word. And the steps to achieve this are many, numerous, but it often include adding titles and descriptions and keyword metadata on your website. You use alt tags. You employ plenty of links throughout your site's pages and contents. You enhance your page loading speed using header tags to break up your content. Now, Ryan Fitzgerald, who is the owner of Raleigh Realty, he followed the tips and others, and he saw his website traffic increase from 5,000 to nearly 100,000 visits per month. And this is what he says. He says their CEO branding strategies created a lot of trust with folks. when you Google moving to Raleigh is in North Carolina, or moving to Charlotte, you see that Fitzgerald's website ranks at the top of the of the search result because both people and Google trust Fitzgerald's brand to provide valuable information. He added that a referral from Google is even more trustworthy than a referral from a friend in the eyes of a consumer because they come across the brand in an organic way through search. You also need to understand who your target audience are. Who are you targeting for your brand or your service? So developing a strong brand will require a thorough understanding of them. And to determine which audiences you should target, you need to consider the demographics, consider the audience habits and behaviors. What are their needs? What what are the goals of those preferred consumers? And you would likely want to target a primary audience followed by a secondary audience that are viable options but of lower priority. Now, once these audiences have been determined, cater your branding to them. Because the end goal is for your audience to understand the why of your product. Many businesses aim to get a full understanding of the audience by developing customer personas or fake profiles that represent the types of consumers a company is marketing to. And these personas, which include information regarding a fictional person's lifestyle, the interests, their age, occupation, education, what else, personality traits, motivate, and more, can help a business to understand who exactly the target audience is, along with why that consumer is a good fit for the brand. And these personas can ultimately guide a business as it develops its marketing strategy and pinpoint ways for businesses to better connect with their target audience. So building a brand around your target audience is an effective way to establish a loyal customer base. Customers want to know a business is listening and catering to their needs, and loyal customers often turn into ambassadors who spread the word about your brand. There's a quote from Joe Palumbo. He's owner of Ice Dam Guys LLC. He says, it's also a good idea to encourage your customers to post online reviews and include photographs of their own in their reviews. It's also a good idea, remember, to encourage your customers to post online reviews and include photographs of their own in their reviews. Creating a compelling content. One surefire way to establish a stronger brand is through clever content marketing. And Tiffany Shreen, I think I got the name correct, who is a marketing advertising expert and also a professor with the Borough of Manhattan Community College. She said, when you create white papers, you create blogs, articles, videos, podcasts, and other content online, and you post it on your website and social media platform, that educates your target audience and draws an awareness to your company and what it's offering and benefit is worth the effort. It has the potential to position your brand as an industry leader among other competitive brands. She said also, but this content shouldn't be a sales pitch. It should be aimed to inform and inspire. Now, first, carefully identify your target audience. Next, you create a list of topics and subject matter categories that you can create content around and for which your business provides solutions. And you make sure the content is relevant to your business and your clientele. Ensure that all information you write and post is accurate and factual. Trin went on to say that if you've conducted any research and have any interesting data or statistics to share, you try to include them in your content too. So always check for typos and grammar to ensure clean and easy to read content. And then you construct a compelling brand story. The storyline is always important because humans are drawn to stories. We like hear stories. We like hear story, her story, and not so much our story. Because the story convey a message more clearly and memorably than just basic facts. And that's why brands can establish a trusting emotional connection with their target audience by just sharing their brand story. And through an effective brand story, companies can shape their own narrative and they can establish connections with like minded audiences, which leads to more enthusiastic patrons and an increase in revenue. Now, the story doesn't have to be a heart wrenching tale to be compelling, but it should demonstrate the value of your product or service and explain the why behind your business using motivators and emotions. You need to ensure that your brand story encompasses your company's mission and personality because consumers want to find an emotional connection with the brands they support and they will likely be loyal to business whose story resonates with them. The story can be shared across various marketing channels, including social media, email newsletters, and TV or print ads. But the message should remain consistent across all platforms. You showcase great photos online. You see, any small business can repurpose stock photos or generic items to convey a message. But the smart business owners go the extra step by creating and posting fresh, relevant photographs that are better visual representations of what they do and who they are. Joe Palumbo, I spoke about, who's the owner of Ice Dam Guys LLC, he says, and I quote, we take copious photographs and videos, mostly of our work at various stages of completion, and post them on the website. Reusing some greatest hits kinds of photos is okay, but in general, you should try to take and post as many different images, yes, of what you provide as you can. End of quote. Instead of hiring a costly professional photographer, what Colombo does is secure a quality camera and get into the practice of taking photographs of himself and his crew while on the job. And they include better and after shots to demonstrate the impact of the services. He said patrons appreciate seeing who they're considering doing business with and the actual professionals who work on a real job. He also went on to say that it's a good idea to encourage customers to post online reviews and include photographs of their own interviews. Photos make your expertise seem more real to others. They make it easier for would be customers to know what to expect of your company and what it offers. And then you design your brand image. So, to find success and stand out among competitors, a brand should maintain a positive and consistent image. And this starts with building a unique identity. So, brand identity encompasses all of a brand's visual elements, such as its company's name, logo, voice, colors, and design. It plays a large role in how customers perceive a brand, as it visually represents what a company is about and differentiates a brand from competitors. So, a brand image should be authentic and appeal to your target audience. Now, when creating or reinventing a brand image, you need to keep a uniform and consistent identity. Keep in mind that your brand image will require consistent improvement over time to fit the needs of the company. And so, in a nutshell, You need to always be on top of your game. You need to aim to bring whatever inspiration from the leading experts. You need to make your band stand out. And here on our platform, that's our aim. Our aim is to bring you inspiration. And before making any business decision, you need to consult a professional. That professional can advise you based on your individual situation. We are committed to help you start to run and grow your small business. So learn more about us. And I'm sure Gary is going to give you some more advertisement before the end of the program. So you know more about us and what we're here for. That's our branding. Over to you, Gary.
Yeah, definitely. Frank. Frank, you always drop gems. You have made a number of important points. I don't know which one to start with, but let me attempt to start here. Building a strong brand helps you and it helps the customer. And Frank gives a few hints. Earlier, I spoke about in building a brand, you want to understand what is the brand outcome. All right, we talk about this in terms of targeted performance outcome. You must understand this. And whatever the targeted performance outcome is or are, do you understand the art to get there? And do you understand the science to get there? Um, what you want to also achieve with your branding, and Frank hinted on this, you want your customer to identify with you. So there are certain distinguishable features that you need to incorporate into your brand that can help the ideal client, potential customers, to do that with ease. Frank's talk about uniformity around your social media platform, uniformity with your logos and letterhead. You need to have all of this. And I'll talk briefly about them just now. But when you go about building your brand in this way, what it does, it helps your ideal client to identify with you. And that's where you get to know, like, and trust. The ideal client can do several things. They can say to themselves, because I know this brand will give me high reward consistently. I will get measurable results consistently. I will get predictable outcome consistently. I will achieve this with the highest degree of accuracy. Can you now imagine that you now are not saying this, but your customer, because they have built that relationship with the brand, because you have built an image, that image has been clearly communicated to the ideal client that this is what you stand for. All right. Especially when we're dealing with premium brands. Premium brands has to be built out in a particular way to communicate quality consistently to its ideal client for it to really stand out. And this is some of what Frank would have hinted on. But Frank, when you're having fun, time flies, my friend. It flies. Today, I'd wanted to cover 5 habits. I only get to look at one so far. But let me quickly say to the audience some of the 5 habits that I'd wanted to cover today. I'd want to look at studying people, the importance of studying your ideal client, which is market research, the importance of studying your market. You need to understand your market is vital. The third habit that you need to focus on also is innovate based on data. Don't innovate any product, any service unless you have data. So make it a habit to innovate based on data. The fourth habit that I'd want to emphasize is study communication media. And here again, Frank would have given a hint on that because an essential part of building a brand, you need to understand communication channels, communication medium. And there are multiple types. There are mass media. When we talk of mass media, we talk about radio, television, newspaper, your social media. There are a broad spectrum of social media. There's the metaverse. Depending on where you are in the world, you may have access to the metaverse. And then there's independent communication medium, all of which you need to understand when you're building a strong brand. And the last habit is invest in visibility. All right, you need to have budgetary allocation to that. But we cannot get into all of this today. We cannot because we're going to spend the rest of the day. We don't skate through the information. We try to go for depths to ensure that you have enough information at the end of the day. Frank, what I also want to emphasize um, as I look at some of the reasons why you want to study the ideal client. Studying the ideal client is not only before you innovate products or services, but one of the things that you want to do is to have what we call a feedback desk, and you have a data collection and management personnel assigned to collecting those feedback. Why? In studying your ideal client, it's not a one-time thing. It's a continuous exercise. So this should be incorporated into your culture because it's by having these feedback mechanism in place, you are able to consistently collect data, analyze data, and use data to help to inform business decisions. If you don't have this feedback desk in place, feedback mechanism in place, and customer feedback in particular is what I'm talking about here, the possibility exists that when newcomers come into the market and they start with collecting data, they start with studying the ideal client because your existing customer base is not giving you feedback in terms of the level of satisfaction that they have, the level of increasing needs that they have, because the newcomer comes into the market and they are more market oriented, market sensitive, market responsive, they squeeze you out of the market. So this first element of studying your ideal client, really getting savvy and comfortable with the ideal client, is so important when you're attempting to build a strong brand. It's a continuous process, and you should keep this in mind. Frank, again, today we spent a lot of time talking about foundation concepts in building a brand. It's getting it right. Study your ideal client. Study make sure before you innovate, you understand why you're innovating. You know the why. You know the purpose of the innovation. You know how it's going to add value, how it's going to fix problems. You know this. But this is not the end. It's not the end. Frank hinted on it when he talked about website and university in a universal, you know, system in the website. You need to think about your logo. And a lot of businesses, their products are identified based on logoing, how that logo is designed. For example, when we look at Mercedes Benz, if you take away the logo, you may not necessarily know it's Mercedes Benz because Mercedes Benz of the past is not of Mercedes Benz of today. There are a lot of different designs that are coming out, but because that logo is there, you're able to clearly distinguish it. And because you might have built a history of relationship with this brand, that logo helps you to identify with your brand. So these are all elements of building a strong brand, because the last thing that you want to do is to invest so much into building a brand and then you don't have clear identifiable features of that brand. So when someone, let us suppose you're in the FMCG, you're doing fast moving consumer goods, and fast moving consumer goods are stocked up in the supermarkets, but they're stocked up against many other brands. What is going to help that consumer to identify your brand, your logos, your color schemes, and all of these things is going to help. For example, when we look at Milo over many, 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 many years, their packaging, their logo has been consistent over many, 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 many years. All right. And if you see another Milo, because you don't know it, you don't like it, you don't trust it, you want the Milo that you have grown accustomed to. And that's what some of what Frank was also hinting to. All right. It's important to take all of these factors into consideration as you attempt to build a strong brand. Frank also went into things like SEO. It's important because if you're going to be leveraging social media platform, it's not just about producing the advertising content and putting it out there. You need to have a specialist that can help you with the SEO. So all of these are elements that you need to consider when you're attempting to build a strong brand. Frank, with all of this, I want to say to rising stars in business, it's important to pause and ask yourself what is the real cost of doing business, and to recognize that there's a cost. All right, there are someone that might say, okay, this is how business is done. But if you underestimate the cost of doing business, by default, you're undermining your success in business, because you might make a budget for research, but is there a budget for innovation? You might make a budget for research and innovation, but is there a budget for marketing and visibility and public relations? So all of these has to be factored into your cost of doing business. All of this has to be factored into building a strong brand. Is the entire ecosystem of building that brand must be taken into consideration. And when you fail at any one side of it, by default, you're going to set that brand up to fail. All right, it's going to fail. And I can't emphasize this enough.
Mm-hmm.
One of the reasons we continue to be here every day is because we want to give you the information so you don't make decisions that can hurt you financially, that can hurt you in relationships that you're having with your investors, that can hurt you in many ways. We do all of this because the facts are showing. When we look at 2021, we see 40% of business startups failed in 2021. In 2022, we see, 20% fail. In 2022, we see 40% fail. And in 2023, we see 49.9% of business startups fail. So we begin to look at some of those reasons why those businesses are failing. And many of you are failing because you have not yet developed a strong brand image. It takes time, and as Frank would have said, it's a process to do this. But the faster you get the information and the support to start building a strong brand, that is what can set you up for success. I want to invite you to come and be part of our community, because a lot of the information that we're going to give you on these platforms is free, no cost attached. You just need to subscribe and you're going to get daily update. But as I said, I came here today to share 5 essential habits to build a strong brand, and I have not even been able to exhaust one of them. One of them. So when you come into our community, we're going to be able to go deeper into all of these concepts so as to ensure that as you set yourself up to build a brand, and when we talk also of building brand, we are not only talking to you about building a local brand. All right, we're going to work with you to build a brand that is strong enough, that can go national, that can go regional, that can go international. Yes, sometimes when we speak on certain issues, depending on where you are, you might say, hey, but this is not relevant to the local market. But that might be true. But when we are training you, we are not training you for the local market. We're training you for the local market, but we want to help you to start thinking as a global entrepreneur, someone who understands global realities and how to start building your brand, how to start outfitting your business to be relevant to a global market. Yes, we can start local, but you need to start having that vision as to how to take you global. And that's where we come in, because we have done this multiple times, and we want to give you that support to help you to up level in your brand. So, with that being said, I want to turn back to Master Frank. Master Frank, your closing thoughts on today's program. All to you, my friend.
Thanks, Gary. Um, Brands are all about habits. And sometimes the best thing a brand can look to do is to change a habit. And even if it helps create a habit in the first place. Of course, brands tell themselves they do this all the time, but for many brands, the focus of their problem solving is on increasing consumption. And their answer to a pattern they feel they know and understand is more of that pattern. But the insight here is that changing a habit for the better doesn't necessarily mean just offering the consumer more of what they have or more of what the brand perceives consumers want. Let's look in the context of the fast foods industry, for example. Generosity is not a competitive advantage. When everyone's offering bigger portions, the portions aren't more generous. They quickly become the new norm or the new normal. The pattern itself hasn't changed, it's just got bigger. And one of the reasons why brands are so reluctant to change patterns is that they take so many of the cues from what they perceive to be consumer behaviors. And what they don't always stop to do is check whether those normal behaviors are how people want to behave, or whether in fact they're simply how people do behave because the sector is driving the behavior that way. Here's a pattern by way of example. Consumers are eating the double stack burger and barrel of chips because that's what everyone is offering them when they order a family size meal. And if it's there, they'll eat it. Habit. It's not their fault. The brand made me do it. And that doesn't necessarily mean, though, that they want to eat that much food or that they won't eat less or that they won't like to be offered less. But that's how marketers have taught themselves to analyze what's going on. If that many people are eating that many big meals and competitors are offering big meals, that's a pattern, which means they need to offer bigger meals, which they then do. So the consumer eats more and on it goes until some smart soul breaks the cycle and renormalizes the category. In fast food, for example, consumers fed up with feeling they might have to discipline themselves about portion control and now asking brands to do it for them and recalibrating offerings in the process. Supersizing is out, miniaturizing is in. Small meals, small drinks, small treats, great for the brands because proportionately consumers are paying more per mouthful for the privilege of having less mouthfuls. Great for the consumers because they feel they're doing something that's good for them. The very clear message. If your brand is competing in a more scenario, sometimes the wisest thing you can do is make the case for less. Not by pointing out why people should abstain, but rather by developing an offering that still feels desirable and yet also seems more responsible. So, in broader terms, wherever market follows a pattern as a pack, the disruptive opportunity is to redraw what you do by packaging an answer that makes sense and takes control. Don't just ask consumers to break the habit, or worse, still go without. Instead, Check whether what they're doing and what the market is used to is a behavior consumers would like to be making or the one they have been given. If the habit they've got is not the habit they want, your opportunity is to offer them a way to re-normalize the habit via your brand. Thank you very much. Have a good
Frank, you
brand.
got me laughing, right? Because I can recall, very often I'm among a number of subject matter expert on this particular topic, and they often talk about authentic branding. And one of the things that they emphasize is you should make your personal brand your corporate brand, because your personal brand, it should be true to you. It should not be a facade. It should not be an acting. You do what you do. You eat what you eat. You produce what you sell what you produce.
Mhm,
You're putting out there what you believe in.
mhm,
And when you do that, that's the most authentic approach to branding, because you're not giving the consumers what you don't eat. But the sad reality is that we don't have a whole lot of that, because a lot of people innovate products and services, they innovate brand, and the key focus is the cash flow maximize.
yeah.
So if I have to promote habits that is not necessarily healthy to the consumer, but I'm gonna be able to cash flow optimize, I'm gonna promote those habits, and I'm gonna put multiple of billions of dollars into shaping a way of thinking, and
Mhm,
sometimes it takes decades for people to recognize that they went down the wrong rabbit hole.
mhm,
So, great points that you would have raised there. And of course, this is almost an unexhaustible topic, because we can look at this from so many different standpoints. And as time progresses, we will definitely do a deep dive or a deeper dive into what authentic branding is all about. Are we going to build a brand simply to cash flow optimize, or are we going to build that brand to ensure that we're adding value, we're fixing problems, and we're helping to make people's lives better? As I reflect back on the Big Mac concept that you talk about, um, are people making the critical choice between the Big Mac and healthy eating? The
mhm.
Big Mac may not necessarily be the healthy food, but a smaller portion. What was your term? You talk about minimalism. You eat.
Miniaturization,
You
miniaturizing,
got it. You got
miniaturizing.
it. That might be the healthier choice. So
Yeah,
there's so much for us to dig in there, because the minimalism in terms of how you eat
yeah.
may reflect organic, right? As against, and organic has more benefit because you have all the mineral benefits from that. So there's a lot to go into here as we talk about, branding and
Yeah.
marketing, and building that strong brand. You want to say something before you wrap up?
No, no, no. I'm
Okay.
saying that as I get older, I am now miniaturizing my meals.
It's funny because when you get the facts, you tend to learn that you less you eat. It's better for the physiology, it's better for the psychology, it's better for everything, because the
Yeah,
body is able to heal. Instead of the body working to digest, the body is now working to heal.
yeah.
And the more the body heals, the better the body and mind is able to combine and do so much more. So there's so much to go
And
into here.
since we've been on so long about this food, my stomach is start rumbling for breakfast.
Let me let you go, buddy. Oh, let me let you know. All right. To the audience, I want to say to the audience, today we have viewers from over 50 countries. I want to thank you guys for taking the time and believing in us and trusting this program. Today, on the two platforms, we have over 35,000 persons who have subscribed to this platform. Again, I want to thank you from the depths of my heart for supporting this platform. However, I see that over 70% of persons who are looking at this program, you have not yet subscribed to the program, perhaps because you might have forget to press that subscription button. But I want to emphasize once you're starting your business, you're the average person who wants to achieve more in life, this is the platform for you. All right. So do subscribe, do like, subscribe, and share. Make a comment also. Tell us what you want us to talk about. And we'll definitely be doing that for you in the context of business. All right. So thanks again. And do remember to subscribe if you have not subscribed already. I want to thank my colleague for always taking the time to be here to give a value to the general public. All right. We do a lot of research on these contexts. Some of it because we live it, we were able to speak to it. But I also want to say to my colleague, um, I like your spirit. And in the event that you just joined us and you don't know who my colleague is, his name is Clement Frank. He is an economist. He is also a leader, certified leader, and he is also in the process of releasing a new book. All right, and that book is all designed to help you to do business better. Now, in closing, again, I want to encourage you to go look at our website. We have the website is on the screen, bestsellerportal.org. And when you go to this website, you will see a lot of the platforms that we have. For example, you will learn more about 1 Degree to Success. I want you to go. Don't let me tell you about 1 Degree to Success. Go look at this program, see what we are doing here. The second program that you will be introduced to is Business Success Blueprint. Is there a blueprint to position your business for success? And yes, there is a blueprint. This is Success Leave Clues. So when you want to start and scale a business, you have to ask yourself, what clues are you listening to? What clues are you looking at? What clues are you implementing? This program is going to go a lot into that to really help you to understand how to take those clues and amplify those clues into your business success. Next, you will learn about the GIP initiative. Now, what exactly is the GIP initiative? On this platform, you will learn what is the Global Influencers Partners Program. Now, if you have a business, all right, you have a brand, and you are not partnering with influencers, or you're not positioning yourself to be an influencer, you're leaving not just the crumbs on the table when it comes to cash flow, you're leaving perhaps more than half of that cake on the table. When you become an influencer helps you to break through the know, like, and trust factor. Breaking through the know, like, and trust factor position you to cash flow much faster. But there's so much more. An influencer, they are in a strategic position of strength to significantly increase their income stream. So this program will tell you a whole lot about that and more so position you to become an influencer. The fourth program is Cash Flow Incubator. Yes, you have a business and you cash flow your business and you're happy with all of that. Kudos to you. Is cash flow ever enough? This program helps you to understand how you can leverage your business success and set the stage to create additional sources of income to your business. And guess what? When your business is set up properly, this income stream can also be passive income cash flow, which means you just set the infrastructure works itself, and you make money from this entire process, and so much more. All right, so the last program I'm going to tell you about is this one, and everyone should start thinking like a high net worth investor. All right, you want to put yourself in that position of strength where you can see yourself as a high net worth investor. All right, so it begins by investing in you. This program is going to really help you to understand how to prepare yourself for success and how to use evidence-based marketing, how to use evidence-based leadership, how to use evidence-based management to position yourself for success. And evidence-based is not being used lightly here. All right, what evidence you want to be successful? What evidence are you deploying as your tools, as your processes, as your systems to become successful? part of your evidence-based success might be talking to people who have done that 10 times over and they understand the process. Do you have the kind of mentor, the kind of coach, the kind of sponsor and supportive community to help you accomplish this? We can help you with this. So go to this website right now, study the website, and feel free to reach out to us. We'll be so happy to talk with you. Master Frank, don't let me keep you holding any longer. Do have a phenomenal day.
You
And
too, sir.
we'll do this again. Thanks, my friend. And
All right
we'll do
then.
this again tomorrow.
Good.
All
All right.
right, then.
Take care.
Yeah, my friend. Take care.